I had just taught first period, and Ms. Allen had a study hall. I think it was downstairs, and she'd just come up, and I was monitoring the hallway, and she said, the weirdest thing just happened. A plane flew into the World Trade Center. And I said, really? Boy, that's a huge mistake. No thought that there was anything more than an accident. And I had a prep period, so I went down to the Teacher Work Center, and it was on TV, and we're watching. Maybe 2-3 minutes after I got there, the second plane hit the second tower. And it was so beyond comprehension. And it's hard now looking back 10 years to realize we never had anything like this before.
Yeah, I was teaching at another school, and one of the other teachers came into my room and said, "Hey, did you hear that a plane crashed into the World Trade Center?" And I was like, "No," and I actually went and looked it up online, and I was like, "Wow, that's interesting." And then I went back to teaching. I didn't think anything of it the first time, and then after that period, I looked again, and I had seen the second one, and then that's when I knew something was different.
I was actually a senior in high school, and I was in the library for my college writing class, and this one crazy lady that was a home ec teacher came running in and screaming about it, and so then we all turned on the news and actually watched it.
About the attacks.
I was in my dorm room. I was a sophomore in Allegheny, and I actually woke up early that day to finish a paper. I was a little bit of a procrastinator, so I was up and typing. I think my paper was due at like 11, and it was, I don't know, around 9 o'clock, and my phone rang.
I was actually at home. I had just started working here, and I wasn't working full-time yet, so I didn't come in until third period. So as I was getting ready in the morning, I had the TV on and I had the Today Show on. And they came on and reported that a plane accidentally hit one of the towers.
I was actually a elementary teacher at Highland School District in Fairmount Elementary, and it was during my planning period. And a teacher next door, the first grade teacher, had come over, and she was crying, and she asked to speak to me. And I walked out of the room, and she asked me to follow her into her room, and she just turned on the TV, and I saw the towers, the first tower was smoking, and she had told me that a plane had gone into the tower, and she was worried. So that's why I first found out about it.
It was a very interesting day for me because, of course, back in 2001 I was a teacher, and that morning I was on my way towards Shanksville, PA, actually, out towards Somerset, because we had teachers had a training that morning, so I wasn't actually in my classroom. So as the attack started, I was actually in my car and wasn't listening to the radio, so myself and the passenger, another teacher that I had with me, we had no idea what was going on.
10 years ago, I was a classroom teacher, and I was in my classroom, and probably a similar story to what you've heard from other people in the building. Somebody came over and told me, actually my teaching partner right across the hall walked over. I remember looking at her, and she said, "You better turn your computer on. There's something going on in New York. One of the buildings has been hit." And I didn't know what that was, and I went over and didn't say anything to the kids in the room, went over and flipped on the screen so I could see it, and the kids were sitting perpendicular to where the screen was, and I could see, looking on my right side of my face, I could see what was going on the screen as it was being updated on different websites, and I could see the building burning, and then the next plane hitting, and then just trying to figure out like what was going on, why planes would be running into buildings, so unusual. Lots of thoughts go through your mind. Then word started to get around the building rather quickly, and kids started getting really nervous very quickly, and staff was really scared. I can't say that I was scared. I was just alarmed.
My first thought was, I can't believe how much they're messing up at this air traffic tower that they sent, a second plane flew in. It literally took 2-3 minutes before it dawned on me this wasn't an accident. And to watch that second plane just come in the second tower and explode. And I don't know if I'll ever forget that.
Initially I thought it was just interesting, something weird was happening. I had no concept that it was a terrorist attack, and once it hit me what was going on, I knew things would be different. I knew it was something was gonna change.
It's gonna be big.
Yeah.
My first impression was, wow, I really never want to ride on a plane because I had fear of heights anyways. And then as we were watching, you saw the second one go in, and that's when everybody kind of started speculating. And it was crazy. We had never seen anything like that before. That was, you know, our generation's Pearl Harbor, I guess.
Yeah.
So.
It was just surreal, completely. My best friend Shay called me on the phone, and she said, "Turn on the television." And I turned on the TV, and I just said, "Well, what is this?" And she said the World Trade Center had been attacked, and I think I said, like, "Are you kidding?" Like, what? I kept saying, "What is this?" Because it just didn't make any sense to me what I was looking at. It looked
Moments of confusion.
My first reaction was, wow, how could someone fly a plane into the tower? That must have been, you know, they must have had troubles with the plane. And then it was about 9 o'clock, and I believe that, you know, we were watching it live, and the second plane hit. And right then, she looked at me, and I looked at her, and we knew that it was not an accident. We knew that it was a terrorist attack.
But we were having a nice time, having a great conversation. The weather was beautiful. It was a beautiful drive up, you know, as fall was starting. And we drove, we were on Route 30. And right before we got to Camp Allegheny, which is where we were going for the training that day, I looked off to my right, and oddly enough, I saw this huge cloud of black smoke. And it was very odd to see that, because we knew that the property right next to the camp was just an old strip mine, and there wasn't anything actively happening there. So it seemed really, really odd to see a huge cloud of black smoke rising up from the ground. And we had no idea what was going on. So we continued our way. I made a comment about the smoke, and both of us looked at each other and said, "Yeah, that is odd. We had no idea what might be going on." And we arrived at the camp, and we walked into the room where all the other teachers were congregated, and everyone was very silent. And we started to ask, what's going on? And they were surprised we didn't know. I guess they assumed we would have been listening to the radio on the way up, and they started to tell us and they said something about an airplane still being missing over Pennsylvania. And we looked at each other and thought, you know, could that be what we just saw? And we didn't actually see the plane, but it turns out that probably less than a mile from where we were driving that day, right to our right, that was, you know, Flight 93.
Angry, and trying to figure out, like, why is always a tough question to answer. Like, why for people who had nothing to do with anything to die? That was a really hard day. That was a hard day.
I think in some ways, not as much as people thought it would be. As time's passed, we've moved on, but we have created a much higher level of secrecy. So it's changed American history, but I think in other ways, like we need to, you go back to daily life.
It's interesting. I remember weeks after, or within the first couple weeks after the attacks, driving around and seeing people on the side of the road with signs that say "Home for America," and just it was weird.
I definitely think it's made America more patriotic. I think it's made us, you know, smarter when it comes to homeland security.
I think that people have changed their opinions of others as a result. A lot of times for the negative. In a lot of ways, though, I think it opened our eyes to things that we weren't aware of before, and other cultures that we weren't aware of before. And so not only the negative, but we learned a lot more about a culture that we knew nothing about previously. So I guess that's a positive that came from it. But I also think, and this makes me a little bit sad, the patriotism that came out of the event itself was so powerful, and it makes me sad now because you don't see that anymore.
I think we're a little bit more cautious. We're not as naive as we used to be. I also think that everybody's lives changed. Some changed immediately when they lost family members. Some changed gradually as, dealing with, going to a sporting event and having to have your purses checked, bag checks and things like that. The airports, in little ways, I think some people's lives changed.
I think that America has grown, it grows when there's a tragedy. I think that there becomes a sense of patriotism, nationalism. You see people flying flags. We, at baseball games and football games, we now always sing God Bless America after the 7th inning. We, honor our firefighters, our veterans, our policemen, whereas for a long time after Vietnam and Korea, our veterans were kind of forgotten.
I'd like to reflect on how I think the attacks changed us as a country and as a people immediately. One of the biggest impacts on me, besides the actual attack, was seeing how this country responded. And one of the things I was really proud of was driving around. I remember for months and months and months after the attacks, I felt like almost everywhere you turned you saw an American flag. And I think it kind of caused all of us, to take a look at ourselves and our country and realize how lucky we are and how on a daily basis we should remember and think about and help and just remember the people, the men and women that serve this country presently and in the past.
One thing that impressed me about 9/11, the reaction of Americans on 9/11, was the level of commitment of people. First responders, we're used to it. There's some disaster, and they just go. Men and women, doesn't matter who they are, religion, race, gender, they just go. And they put themselves in danger. And I think for America, it was an awakening of how important and heroic those people are. They just went in, not even knowing what was going on, and a lot of them died because of that, just to try to help and save somebody else. And that level of commitment, we talk about commitment in this school a lot, and we're just asking for commitment to your academics and to your school and what we call your job. That commitment, that level of commitment was just astounding to me. And then the commitment of the people on the plane on Flight 93 as it was heading into the ground in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. That commitment to their country and to people they didn't even know, risking their own lives and never seeing anybody in their family again. The commitment to what was right. And we talk about the bystander effect a lot in bullying. That was it. That's it exactly right there. They weren't going to be bystanders. It was wrong what was going on, and they were going to do something, and they cost them their life. But it saved so many more, hundreds or maybe even thousands more. And when we talk about commitment, that's what it was. That was commitment to me. And so when you hear me talk about commitment here, try to frame it in those words. Like that's commitment, and we're asking you to commit to things here at school for your life. That was really impressive to me, and I'll never forget the people who did all those things for all those people who they'll never know them, and they tried to save their lives.